Hey guys, like a lot of the reasons, the issues that Trump was highlighting, even if he's a charlatan, even if he had no intention on solving it, a lot of the things he brought up, the Democrats still do not have, at least as far as I can tell, their version of the solution to those problems. And I wanted to play Joe Walsh's president for a day. You're the president or party leader. You can be either one, whichever you prefer. Uh, and set the agenda here for me. Let me find this post that I eventually
Yeah,
made. Um, things Donald Trump. I'm just going to go through them, and I want to
yeah.
hear what you think your new party should be saying on this issue. So Donald Trump talked about the hollowing out of American work, right? And Make America Great Again is essentially shorthand for your jobs got outsourced, they went overseas, and it didn't get replaced by anything. Your careers are gone, your town's dried up. It means other things, but that was a big part of what it was winking at is
I would,
the disappearance of the middle class. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I would only add, Xander, to the economic piece. Make
Yeah.
America great again also means make America a white
Yes.
Christian nation where you can say Merry Christmas and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's all the social stuff too. And
Totally.
I only say all of that because it's the world I come from, and most of his voters over the years have told me, Joe, I want an America back where the fucking local plant I worked at was in town, but I want an America back where there
For
weren't so
sure.
many fucking genders and blah 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 blah. It's both.
Yeah. Interesting. Let's break those apart. The second one's I think I was focusing on the economic one because I think there are
Well, that's where your
ideas
heart
and
and head
policies
are.
that are easier to address without also creating the ostracization of other demographics and whatnot. But let's start with that. So Trump said basically, I see you towns that have been hollowed out, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tariff the world, and they're going to reindustrialize. Now, what we've learned after what are we, year and a half in of Trump doing this strategy, things get more expensive, but you know not so expensive that companies come back and reindustrialize America. That hasn't happened. That plan has failed. But that said, I don't see the Democratic Party in a way that I can clearly um, articulate having their own plan around the loss of the middle class, globalization, et cetera. So, Joe Walsh, party leader, what should the Democratic Party be saying about globalization?
Well, Xander, this is why these conversations are so fun and interesting, but hard.
Yeah,
Because I'm on this on damn near every policy. I'm not where most Democrats are. So what should the Democratic Party say about
you know
globalization?
what? Let me call you Joe Walsh movement leader. Don't worry about the Democratic Party. Joe Walsh movement leader. And globalization is maybe I'm being too specific. The
What?
disappearance of the American middle class from jobs that have an identity and pride to ones that do not, right? That is a big part of why Trump won the Rust Belt, is being able to speak to that
Right.
pain. What is an alternative platform? What should we be pushing for there?
So to get at that platform, I start with the bullshit and the lie that is, okay, I'm going to return that plant to that town.
Right.
I am going to bring back. Everything's going to be made in America. Like again, what Trump promised people was, I'm going to build a wall around America. I'm going to keep people in competition out of America, and
Right.
everything's going to be American made, American job, blah blah blah. 1954 again. Um, now, here's what's interesting, Xander. That's all a lie and bullshit. It's like I'm going to bring back clean coal, a lie and bullshit, clean coal. Um,
Right.
it's all bullshit. It's all a lie because it ain't coming back. That world isn't coming back. That plant
Not coming back.
generally, and but to your point, so Trump just feeds the lie,
Right.
really with no solution. Democrats are kind of trying to prop up the same bullshit and lie, um, and me just philosophically, you and I've talked about this before, with
Yeah.
every change from an agrarian society to an industrial society to technological change, blah, 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 shit happens, jobs are lost, industries are displaced, and in a dynamic economy, things replace it. And ideally, the government is helping the people retrain, readjust, help find these new jobs in what is a massively quickly evolving technological age, and also an age of globalization.
Yeah.
We can't build a wall around America and make every fucking car in the world American made again.
Yeah.
So my platform would be embrace change, because it's here and it's coming and it's always, and this is how we've always improved. And this is how generally, and you're going to fight me on this a little bit, generally incomes and quality of life have generally always improved, not equally, because government we haven't let government do a strong enough job helping those who are not at the top adjust to these changes. So mine would be, it's all lies and bullshit. 1954 ain't coming back. This is
Right.
2026. 2027 is going to be different. All right. I'm here. I'm your president. I'm going to help like a banshee to make sure that everybody in this country is given the assistance they need to transition to the change. That makes sense? Instead of
What
saying the change isn't coming.
100%. And like to a certain extent, I'm trying to figure out how to make you bigger on my screen here.
Am I too
You're like
small?
you're a tiny person on my screen. How do I make this full size? I'll figure it out. Anyways,
Okay.
the uh someone in the comments, Chris said Biden did the CHIPS Act, which is a good example of what you're talking about here, right? This is what's coming. Let's try to build infrastructure and jobs around a
Amen.
new rising market need. Do you think one, I haven't heard the Democrats talk too much about that type of strategy. I don't know if they're licking their wounds or they're taking the wrong lessons from it. In some ways, it felt like Biden was doing many of the things you're talking about. He just was a poor communicator of it. And so he didn't win back
He didn't
people.
he was incapable of
He was
communication.
incapable of
Just,
communication.
Xander, just one important political point. We lived during Biden's administration, we lived 4 years without a bully pulpit. We
Mhm.
don't talk about that enough. We did not have a communicator in the White House. So all of the good shit he did never got out there.
Yeah, you didn't see people be swayed by the CHIPS Act necessarily into saying, "Oh, this is the party that's sticking up for the American workers or whatnot."
The American
And we
people never
also
knew what the fuck it was, right?
didn't know what
Yeah.
it was. Yeah,
But
yeah,
so you asked me, what are the Democrats? I think the Democrats are in a weird place
yeah,
because Trump has co-opted and demagogued a lot of what they believe in. It's not like the Democratic Party was necessarily an anti-tariff party. They
sure.
were more, they supported tariffs generally more than my Republican Party, maybe a bit more targeted, and again, way more targeted than Trump's. But they're in a funny place because there's generally the energy in the Democratic Party would still like to say, Xander, let's bring back that plant into that town. We can do it.
Yeah, yeah. And but part of that, and you and I have talked about like different unions in the past. Part of that is they're beholden to unions that are industry specific unions, right? So it's
Mhm.
harder to, there isn't a chips workers union yet that you're appealing to as an elected official. It's a demographic you're going to maybe create. I mean, it's a small one here already, but it's one you're hoping to create or maybe reskill. And uh, maybe there hasn't been enough work with these unions to talk about the transition. To say, hey, automotive union, you've got, and they probably don't want to hear that. You've got 2 million members. Realistically, in the next 10 years, it's going to be more like 500,000. But we want to work with you to make sure that 1.5 lands somewhere else that has a little bit more of a runway for them. And so maybe there's work to be done with labor on that front, that hey, not every deal we have is going to be a false promise that we're going to restore car manufacturing to the scale that it was once before. And even
Well,
in China, that's not true. They're automating a lot of how they build shit too. That's going by the wayside there as well.
like every car that every one of us drives has parts from like 69, 75 different
Right.
countries. The day of a car being made in a country is fucking gone. Xander, the problem here is, and I would often say this pejoratively, I don't mean to be critical, the Democratic Party has always been the party of government. What does that mean? That means we've got problems. The Democrats have always looked toward government to, as aggressively as possible, fix those problems. My old Republican Party said they were kind of the opposite of that. What's happened is Trump, because he has no core, no philosophy, he's led the Republican Party into a place where they are kind of now the party of government
Government
aggressively.
invasions. Yeah.
So both parties are. Trump's is all bad, but I think the Democrats are lost right now.
Yeah, I have said a few times. It's interesting watching the Democrats just rail against tariffs in general because I'm
Yeah,
like, are we the free market party now? Like, what is? I get why it's attractive because it's such a losing issue because of the haphazard way he's done so much of this.
right.
But we can't. Are we the free market party now? It feels like that's both. For me, like you've got to hedge a little bit if you're the Democrats because that is not your mo. But there has been a weird, reversing of roles really since even Clinton in some ways, right? With NAFTA and everything, that was like a big switch up for Democrats too. Okay, but I like in general issue one. I think you solved to a certain extent, which says, look, we are going to prioritize the American workers, but we're going to do it by looking ahead to see what's on the horizon. As Biden did, would you say the CHIPS Act is a good example of that?
Absolutely.
CHIPS Act? Okay. And maybe the thing that was missing a little bit from the CHIPS Act, I get why it was, because he was working with um, sitting congressmen trying to get it passed, and he had to promise jobs in certain areas. Like a lot of the CHIPS
Yeah.
Act, where the money was going, it was in the South. If you look at where the money was
Yeah.
flowing there, it probably would have been smart to do what we were talking about a few minutes ago, which is to pair it with some of the towns that have been hollowed out as well,
Mhm.
and make sure that you are telling those demographics, we see you, we saw what's happened over the last 40 years, 50 years in your towns, and we're going to try to do something here to address it as well. I like it though. Point number one, hollowing out of American work, dynamic, forward-looking policies to build infrastructure, new infrastructure to work on new problems. Okay. Two, I don't know if we should get into two because the whole episode
What?
would be about corruption and
What?
self-dealing in Washington. We can do. I want to skip that because I want to do like a whole series that's you and I just talking about corruption.
Yeah, because that
And
should be such an easy one. Yeah.
yeah, there's so much there. And you and I talked about that actually last time. We got into where we disagreed, but we did say everything needs to be 50x more transparent than it is today.
You and I
There,
generally, young socialist, old fart libertarian, you and I generally agree more, would find more common ground on the corruption reform issues than we
yes.
would the economic issues.
I mean, I was going through this list. I think we're going to find a lot of things that I think there's things you like and things I like that, we'll never agree on. But I think there's at least some big, meaningful solutions on all these fronts. I'm going to ask a tricky one with this next one.
Okay.
Endless wars. We're railing on Trump for Iran, rightfully so. We're railing. He's kidnapping presidents with Maduro. He's, maybe going to do it again in Cuba. It looks like he's not good. This is not the foreign
Yeah.
policy we want. This is not the military policy we want. But we'd be full of shit to say Washington before this was a peaceful place where we never went to war and we always prioritized the American people and their needs, right? We just pulled out of Afghanistan, which was a $2 trillion disaster, if my memory strikes me right. Iraq, we weren't sure why we were there. A lot of Americans say 9/11 if you ask them why we were in Iraq, and on and on and on and on. So the endless wars has been, I think had peace for 16 years of our 250-year history. It's been an issue. It's been a particularly egregious issue post World War II, throughout the Cold War, et cetera. What should the opposition to Donald Trump say about no more forever wars? Very attractive to many voters, the idea of no more forever wars. What is the honest way to approach that conversation?
Um, it's such a cool issue, Xander, and you made such a good point. It's like when you said, even before Trump, we were all, it's like Trump is the worst version of all of this. Like, and you can go down the line, every politician lies. Trump lies as he breathes. Most politicians engage in some sort of corruption. Donald Trump engages in 100 acts of public corruption every day. So, like, we've always been a country of needless interference in the world's affairs, too many
Yes.
wars, blah, 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 blah. Trump comes along and just, again, goes bananas with that. Um,
Oh, I think what's unique about Trump
huh.
is he's enriching him. I think before that, many politicians were maybe getting a little bit of support in terms of like they got to keep their power, but they weren't. They were kind of enriching others. They were working with corporations or other people that passed their policies, and they were getting a little bit of money. They were keeping their Senate seat or whatnot. Trump is enriching himself directly with his corruption, which feels
Well, you're
particularly
right.
egregious.
You're right. And thank you, Xander. Correct me. You're right. Um, there have been politicians that have been personally corrupt and use their offices to enrich themselves. Trump
Yes.
does it openly at a
Yes.
scale we've never seen.
Yes.
Um, it's almost like he's forcing us to confront all of our
See it.
sins.
Totally.
Yeah, yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
It's a great way to put it.
Look, my as president of the United States, my philosophy was simple. We need to have the biggest, most fucking badass military in the world. And I would make the case to the left why America needs to have the biggest, most badass military in the world. And then I would look to the right and say, and we don't fucking use it until we absolutely have to. We lead by example. We don't fucking invade Iraq to tell Iraq what their fucking government should be. That's not what America does. We don't do regime change. We don't launch a war because fucking I love Israel because Bibi Netanyahu tells me to. That's not what we do. We lead by example. We try to spread democracy by example. We encourage democracy by example. The whole fucking world, and there are bad people in the world, knows that we could turn them into a parking lot in a day. But we don't do that unless we absolutely have to and our interests are at real risk. I mean, that's
How do you
generally.
think
I'm
is
Go
there
ahead.
is there something you need to sorry, I'm looking at our comments
No.
as we chat. Is there something you need to do around military industrial influence there? Like what is you've
Oh,
been in Washington. What are the mechanisms that force to my point, like before Trump, we were still like as much as what you just said made sense, our representatives were getting us into conflict after conflict,
yeah.
intervention after intervention. What needs to change? What are the what relationships, what policies need to change so the incentive structure is different in Washington, where the next crop of elected officials do not, bow to the needs of the military industrial complex or BB or whatever the influencing forces are.
And somebody just said that's the Reagan doctrine bullshit. I'm sorry. I love you, whoever you are, Sebastian or whoever just joined. Look, I'm sorry. You have to have a military. And America has to have a strong military. Just imagine what a world would look like if this was not a strong military country. Come on, be real. But Xander, to your point, the en- the entire system is incentivized to build and create all these machines, all these weapons of destruction, and then use them. The contracting agreements that are set up, it's all incentivized to produce a lot of shit and use it. And the only way that's going to change is dramatic reform in the purchasing of and the contracting with companies who produce and sell the government a lot of our military shit. That's all got to be cleaned up because it's incredibly corrupt. There is tremendous waste in the defense department, in the Pentagon. Tremendous waste. And the dirty little secret in Washington, Xander, is the establishment of neither party never really wants to clean it up because
Yeah.
those lobbies are hugely powerful.
What does cleanup look like? I'll give you an example of waste. I had a
Yeah.
buddy that was on his way to being a general. And once you start getting more stripes, you start doing things like making large purchasing decisions. And one of the things they were asking him to do was buy some obscene amount of green fatigues. And this is a guy who led a significant group of men in Afghanistan. He's like, guys, where do we need green fatigues? Why the fuck do we need green fatigues? Where are we fighting that's deep green at this point? Everything's desert colored. we certainly don't need this
Yeah.
many green fatigues, even if you want some green fatigues. And they're basically like, it's the same thing we hear across government all the time. You spend it or you lose it. Just do it because we want to keep that budget and we'll figure out what to do with it at another day. We don't want to lose it. And he was so disgusted by it. He basically stepped back from that path on his way to
You
being a
save,
general.
Xander, you would literally save billions and billions and billions in purchasing, in the purchasing process itself if you cleaned it up.
Yeah.
You asked me how we do this.
Yeah.
The only way it's done is through Congress, the people's branch. And the only way it will be done is by electing reform minded Democrats, Republicans, reform minded elected officials who will take on these powerful interests and do it. I'm not terribly optimistic, but that's the only way it can be done. I can't imagine a president coming in with this sort of a platform. He, he could use the bully pulpit, but it's Congress that's got to act on it.
And when you say act, look, I know we have different opinions on like PACs and their ability to spend money and whatnot. Should there be a special exemption in terms of if you are a defense or weapon? Because war is so costly for a country, should there be an exemption for defense contractors? Say, you guys in particular are not allowed to be in the business of pushing us to be larger consumers of your products. You can't spend money in politics. I know that's like starting to butt up against some of your
Yeah.
and I am not asking you to debate me on that. I'm asking you to give me an equally meaningful intervention that you think would change the game in Washington, if that's not it.
Well, the only change is by Congress passing legislation that cleans up and reforms every one of the systems in our defense spending, from purchasing to everything. That's purely coming from Congress.
Got it.
But then and Congress is afraid to do that. So I don't know what needs to change to get Congress not to be afraid to do that. You're
How does
right.
that pressure show up? How does that pressure show up? How are they able to? Would you say they're immensely powerful? Does that show up in the form of PAC donations? Does that show up in the form of, whipping votes against you and stuff? Like, what is when you're up against a group like that and you go, look, I don't think it's best for America to go to war, to buy this many more weapons every year and spend this percentage of our budget on this. How does that pressure look like? You've been a congressman. Like, how does that pressure look like in practice?
It's financial. I mean,
Yeah.
it's major dollars. It's that base in my district. It's expanding that base over there. It's building these weapons in my state.
Yeah.
A new contract for that new breed of tanks in my district. They have, Xander, they have so many goodies to potentially put in front of members that it numbs members and it makes
Yeah.
it difficult for members to do the right thing. But you always get to the rub. Okay, so then fix it, Joe. And my fix is almost helpless. Just elect better people who will stand up to this shit. Your fix would be, no, we need to literally change the way we're doing it. I agree that we need to change the process. I just don't know how you do that without the people in Congress who will do that.
Yeah,
It,
it
it,
is hard. It is hard to stand against someone philosophically that's saying, "I'm gonna bring jobs to your district,"
oh my
right? Like,
God, they have
if
that
you're saying
ability.
that's a core directive of me as a representative is to improve the economic outcomes for the people in my district. It's one of those things where, like, the ownership of war is so distributed that you don't feel personally responsible if it happens, right? You feel like yeah, sure, I was one vote among, 250 or 300 that went that way, but, I wasn't really that influential. But the 50,000 jobs that came to my district, that was me. I made sure if the war was going to happen, I negotiated for those jobs. And I wonder how many issues have that same on top of war, have that same
It,
dynamic where it's like, I'll
it,
never be held to task for this and I'll get all the credit for the jobs that come.
it's uh, it's most visible and pronounced when it comes to defense dollars because everything's so concrete. But
Yeah.
this goes on in any industry, any lobbying industry in government. In Xander, I mean, I maybe I, I mean, I think you and I'd find common ground in that war sucks, and it's a shame that we do have to spend so much money on weapons of war to 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 do what we need to do when we need to do it. And it's all blown out of proportion, and we use it too much, and we go to too many wars. There are way too many Republican and Democratic neocons who want to
Hmm.
fight everywhere and change the world everywhere and force the world to be like us. I want the world to be like us. I want the world to be democracy and freedom, but I don't believe America at a gun barrel can force
Right,
that.
right, right.
But like
And by the way,
you,
we didn't enforce it the other way, which is probably more your style, which is, hey, if you want to be part of our global economic
thank you.
platform here, and this is where I do see at least value in tariffs or other interventions. Like, hey, China, you want to be part of our you want to benefit and be the major producer in the world in the global economic order we've built. You've gotta show you're doing these things. Like, are you putting yourself? Is leadership being put up for a vote? Are you trying? Are you okay? Are we dealing with China? Or are we just dealing with Xi?
Yeah.
Who's captured China? We want to trade with everyone in the world as long as they are an authentic expression of the will of their people, right? But we didn't
Mhm.
do that. We happily made the Saudis and the Chinese and a bunch of other monarchs a big part, maybe the biggest parts, the largest beneficiaries of the global order we built were the
Mhm.
Saudis and the Chinese. Would you say
Mhm.
that's correct?
Yes. Yes.
Two monarchies that do not at
Yes.
all even pretend that they're trying to be democratic. And so that's
Completely.
a non-military intervention if we were a little more careful about who we included in the global economy.
Huge inconsistencies, huge hypocrisies, again, over the years in the regimes that we've propped up that do not advance our ideals. And Xander, you talk about soft power. I mean, Trump's dismantled our soft power around
Totally.
the world when it comes to USAID, when it comes to what we can do to help encourage other countries to be like us. The military is just part of it. But again, it, it it's a necessary part of it, correct? Like we have to
I
have
think
a
that I think the argument you just made was great, right? Which is, hey, there's multiple ways to make sure we're not getting attacked and we're building alliances at the other end of the barrel of our gun.
Mhm,
We've got 70 years of evidence now, not the most effective way to do it. Like, we're very
mhm.
bad interventionists and regime changes. We're very good trade partners, but sometimes we don't create enough criteria as to how you get into our global economic order, how you become a partner in it. We didn't
Maybe,
put enough pressure on it.
yeah, and maybe again the election of Trump, who fed the bullshit that he doesn't want America involved around the world, and that now he's doing the exact opposite. Maybe then there's an opening for a vibrant voice or movement now to get back to that.
It's the gift of Trump. It's the gift of Trump. He raised all
Completely.
these freaking issues that no one was talking about on both sides of the, political spectrum, and that's why I wanted to bring this up with you.
Well,
We're at the
Xander,
30-minute mark, Joe. How are you doing on time? I know,
I'm
I
fine.
know.
I'm fine.
You're
I'm
good.
fine.
Okay.
You brought we've all heard this expression and you've talked about it, and I have the forgotten men and women in this country. That's real. And these are these middle class folk, working class folk whose government no longer meets their needs. And you and I could argue no longer cares about them.
Yes.
The Democratic Party lost touch with them. Trump came along and has bullshitted and demagogued them, but
Yes.
they're still there. And get in front of them and listen to them, and how are you going to help them? That's what the party has to do to be successful.
Mhm. Mhm, mhm. Yeah, it's what I don't know. I don't
That's
that's why
your
these
language.
conversations are that's why these conversations are important. It's just like, how do we this is why I like pressure testing this with you. It's like, what ways let's not forget them. Let's acknowledge these massive demographics that have been failed over recent years. And then if you and I can both get excited about a way to address it, then we feel like maybe there's a strong chance that we won't run into too many brick walls along the way and trying to trying to get those reforms passed. Do you have
I
time for
want the
one more?
next president. Yeah, Xander, by the way, I want the next president. If I were running for president in 28, I'd talk about like 6 or 7 things. One of the 6 or 7 would be not, fuck it. The days of everybody going to college are done, America. Stop with this, man. There are so many opportunities out there for men and women who work with their hands. Community colleges, national service, you and I talked about. We need a leader who can articulate this different world now where we stop pushing everybody into college. Hell, 4-year college may be gone in 30 years. Let's
Yeah,
start
totally.
thinking about something else.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't look good for the future of college. When I was on the Hill running the think tank, Miles and I talked about having a closer relationship with the Department of Labor's projections on what jobs are on the horizon and having a sliding scale for how much a college degree costs.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're going into nursing, we know we have an aging demographic. We're going to need a million more nurses than we have. We should probably be paying people to become nurses. Like that's
Yes.
probably all the shift is. Like we'll pay for your housing and food while you go to school to become a nurse because we need that so much. And if it's something something else, let's say now it's software development in the face of AI.
Yeah.
You can go, but we're not going to subsidize that. It's a $100K degree. You can go if you want to go, but the United States has no special interest in producing more software developers. I mean, I don't know if that's a great example. Maybe I should be saying
No, I
truckers,
get it.
but it seems like AI is eating up software development. And so anyways, having something that's more dynamically pricing secondary education based on
Yes. Yes.
rising employment needs would be fucking awesome. It makes so much sense. And there are needs where we're way behind, like nursing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
some of the needs around like these new infrastructure, like we talked about chips and data centers and
Yeah.
whatnot. Like, there's a special way to build that infrastructure that needs to be trained up. So it'd be great to have a better, closer relationship with labor projections to dynamically price secondary
Completely.
education. What do you think about that?
Completely.
You're in that? All right, cool. Another one. I'm making a website after this, by the way, Joe. That's the Libertarian Socialist going to a bar policy platform. It's just I'm just gonna consolidate all the shit
That's
that we agreed
that's
on
cool.
across the episodes. And
That's
make, all
cool.
right, I
You
want to
got
hit you
me.
with one more while I got you. Because I think we are going to agree on at least this as a priority. Cost of living. Trump said, I'm going to make everything cheaper while I tear off the world and go to war. It's like, it fucking made no sense. But he said, I'm going to make everything cheaper, and that resonated with people. Here we are now, things aren't cheaper. But one branch of the way to make things cheaper for people is housing. We do not have enough housing in this country. We have something like 8 million units short of the housing we need to, I guess, go back to like some sort of price equilibrium. So right now, I think it's like 30 to 40% of people's income is dedicated to their housing right now, up from like 10 in like the 60s and 50s, 60s, 70s, right? That's actually one where there's like nice government incentives working with developers. We just need to be in more units, but there's this challenge. We just need to build more units, excuse me. But there's this challenge because the thing that blocks units from being made are oftentimes are oftentimes policies at like the hyper local level. It's like neighborhood groups and whatnot that stop more units from being built partially because so many Americans have their wealth tied up in their house. That's like how they plan to retire. Is that the value of the house is going to go up over time. More supply obviously drives the price down. It's this one asset class. Like if the cost of food went up 3x, no one would say that's a good thing. But when housing goes up 3x, because there are stakeholders that benefit from that, it's not quite discouraged, or sometimes it's celebrated even for those people. What do we do about housing in this country, Joe? What do you think? You've been in Congress. What can you do?
I'll be a bumper sticker. We need to
Yeah.
make it easier for people to build housing. Period. Make it easier to build. It's generally local and state and sometimes feds, but it's generally local and state government regulations that make building housing exorbitant, expensive. Make it easier for people to build housing. That's my starting point, Xander, and I apologize. That's a bumper sticker starting point. But And then you and I, again, if you locked you and I in a room for an hour, we could take that starting point and turn it into something. What is your starting point?
I think it's totally okay to start. Here's what I'll say: it's not right. When you hear about cost of living, you hear Democrats say price at the pump's too high. It is too high. Price at the pump's too high. Your groceries are too expensive. Your wages need to go up. Those are like the three. I would contend the first two are very hard to control over time, and there is a truth to the cost of things being what they are, which is we just went through a 70-year run where we used cheap labor from across the world and kind of skirted
Mhm.
environmental needs because we didn't understand global warming to the extent that we know it now. So we've been we've been receiving products for incredibly cheap prices because we weren't doing a lot of things we were supposed to. We just talked about trading with, partnering with monarchs that were using slave labor and child's labor to build the products we're buying, at times. So, uh, I think the cost of things is going to go up. That's harder to control. I think over time it is going to go up no matter what we do. The cost of housing, though, is a supply side issue we can control. And I would just
Mhm.
like us to point to that more. Wages should go up. We shouldn't lose that argument, but it's a more contentious argument. I think you and
Mhm.
I would have a lot more disagreements about what to do about wages and minimum wage, et cetera, than we would about housing supply. And so I don't think the bumper sticker is the wrong place to start. I think the important point I'd make is just I'm saying that in contrast to those other areas in which you could
Oh,
attack
completely.
cost of living, housing you'll get broad agreement on, and we just need to figure out how to incentivize, override, whatever in all of those local fights to get those 8 million units up.
And part of what's happening, Xander, is you're right. By the way, everything you just said is spot on. You and I would have a more difficult time sitting in a room figuring out the other issues. This one's
Yes.
easy. We lack supply. How do we make it easier to build supply? Um, People are, and not just upper income people. People for years, for decades now, have been moving to places where it's easier to build, where it's easier to keep more of the money they make,
Yes.
where jobs are more plentiful, where the weather is nicer. I acknowledge it's all tied into each other. And they're leaving areas, and entrepreneurs are leaving areas when it comes to housing where it's more expensive to
My
build
family got
housing.
gentrified from the Bay Area. My family. We're like rich white people. You know what
Think
I
about
mean? And
that.
we're like, my mom was like, I can't retire here. We're doing all right.
Xander, think about that. Yeah. So I think this is an issue that drives a stake into the heart of the Democratic Party, and this has been a really popular the abundance. This has been a really popular issue to be bandied about the last year because this is causing Democrats to look at, in generally in more bluer cities and states, it's more expensive because of again more government regulation for housing to be built. And I hope the Democratic Party takes these on and makes it easier because they could grab that issue from Republicans.
What does that look like? What does when you were in Congress and thinking about these issues, what does a pro housing supply initiative that you think could have broad support look like?
Well, who builds housing? Who do you want
Developers.
built? Thank you. And I know developers can be bad, evil people, just like right.
There's a certain one we don't like at the moment.
But and look, again, hello, markets, capitalism. There are good guys, bad guys. Developers build.
Yeah.
It's too damn expensive for developers to build in Los Angeles County, for example. It's
Hmm.
fucking ridiculously expensive. Where's that coming from? Well, the LA City Council has determined a list of 97 different regulations, and it takes this much time. And I mean, look at the debacle it's been to rebuild from the massive fires they had last year. All
Ezra
because
Klein covered this really well in that abundance book that him and Derek Thompson wrote. Did you
so,
read that book?
yeah. And that's
Yeah.
just, and play that out in so many parts of the country. So
Hmm.
what, so what's the answer? This is all decided by local officials. These
I
regulations, these policies. How do
and
you
and there's
change them? Go ahead.
There's an awesome opportunity here. Sorry to cut you off, Joe. There's an awesome opportunity here because there's the way we build houses. There's so much new technology going into how you can build
Mhm.
new houses that's better for the environment. I just met a group on Sunday. What was this? No, it was Saturday in New York. Before I went home. It must have been Friday. Uh, and they basically have created a way to build units that requires 40% less heating. And buildings, I think buildings are responsible for 40% of carbon emissions. Like the heating, everything that goes into building, specifically heating. Um, and they could cut that in half. And they were essentially building it looked like almost giant magnetiles, like the way they
Mhm.
were standing up these units. So they didn't need quite the. It's one of the reasons we get slowed down on top of policy is the amount of specialized labor that can build places.
Yeah.
And so this didn't require that degree of specialized labor to put these units up. They could put units up faster. They're better for the climate. And you like meet a guy like that and the work they're doing, and be like, God damn, it'd be great to partner with you guys and get 3 million environmentally friendly units up in 2 years because you guys can fulfill that the labor and you all as producers can fulfill that need.
So how can I so let's do that. Let's you and I do that. How can that get done then? What needs to happen for that to be done? Like one of our listeners just said, evil bastards they are, Joe, the developers. I'm sorry. Okay, let's say all developers in America are evil bastards, my friend. Okay, then what are you going to do about housing in this country? Hello? What are you going to do?
Yeah,
I mean,
you see in Portland, they tried to go away from them and they started only working with nonprofits that were doing development, and the cost of the buildings they were building doubled from what they were being proposed, what the proposals were from the developers. And I'm not saying anything other than to point that out, that they tried to go this route in Portland where they said, let's not work with these developers. Let's work with local nonprofits that are going to lead the building projects. And they were completing units for double the cost of the traditional developers.
I'm sorry. I'm not. And again, I've never been bothered by the profit incentive. I've never, in fact, I love and encourage the profit incentive, and you've got so many smart entrepreneurial minds out there. If government could encourage them to get involved in issues like housing and other issues that are really important, man, that's what government ought to be doing, making it easier for these good, smart minds to get into areas like this instead of
Yeah.
just saying, go ahead.
No. Sorry, I was just agreeing. I was just verbally agreeing. Sorry, I'm new to podcasting. I cut people off through just
No.
vocal spasms.
Again, this is what, Xander, this, as we close, this is what Democrats have to, because forget about this fucking Republican Party. It is what it is. But
Yeah.
this is what Democrats got to have come to Jesus moment conversations about this shit. Because if your answer is, Joe, these fucking developers they're evil bastards. We need governments to build housing and nonprofits to build housing. Let me tell you something. As you said, Xander, then forget about it. It'll take a million years and they're going to be more expensive. I'm sorry. You have to deal with the evil bastards.
Yeah, and look, we don't have to work with them exactly how we worked with them before. Like part of
Yes.
the frustration before was, some of the frustrations, they went into neighborhoods and gentrified them. They built units that none of the locals could ever live in, right? And so we can mandate, like this is partially why I
Yes.
brought up this new group that's building units for so cheap. We can say, "Hey, we want new units in this neighborhood and we want them at a price point that the current renters in this neighborhood can buy at. And maybe we even want to prioritize them. They get first crack at this thing, or first crack at like the first 100 or whatnot. Like we don't have to
Amen.
work with them
No,
exactly
local
the ways
governments,
we worked with
amen,
them before.
Xander. Local
Yeah.
governments can do that and incentivize them, meet these 3 or 4 criteria. Baby, we'll open up the world for you. Go.
But we're all getting our margins squeezed by the cost of housing right now. It's a robbery that doesn't have a robber, and so it's hard to point clearly at one person and
Yeah.
say you're taking money from me. But the
Yeah.
lack of housing supply in this country is stealing hundreds or thousands of dollars from every family in this country.
Agreed.
We need
Agreed.
more units. All right, brother. I know you got to run. Thank you for going overtime with me. Loved it.
Xander,
So
great
nice seeing
stuff.
you.
Thanks.
Talk soon.
See you,
Later,
man.
buddy.